What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Show, where I, Graham G. Matthews, break down all the original content you watch on the WWE Network and on Peacock. And today we're talking the May 22nd, 2023 edition of Raw Talk. No Jackie Redmond again this week. We had Scott Stanford filling in for her as they break down the final Raw before Night of Champions coming up on Saturday afternoon. To start off the show here, they recap the Brock Lesnar attack on Cody Rhodes. Not only the one that started Raw, but also the one that was in the middle of Raw in the ring. So they kind of recap that entire saga, and including replaying the Triple H pep talk to Cody Rhodes at the end of the show. So the entire Raw was really dominated by the Cody and Brock stuff, which was fine. Not overly exciting, but a fine way to kind of probably set up an out for Cody to lose in Night of Champions. They hype up Cody versus Brock for Night of Champions, talk about that a bit. Matt Cam says that Cody Rhodes is in the same spot that Triple H would have been in 20 years ago, and was the exact same spot that Triple H was in 11 years ago when Brock feuded with Triple H back in 2012, even breaking Triple H's arm in storyline at that point. So Triple H can kind of relate to what Cody's doing right now. They also talk about the Becky Lynch Trish Stratus contract signing, and Matt Cam says that Becky and Trish both probably feel like they have to beat the other in order to prove their superiority over the other person. They recap the main event that saw Matt Riddle, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn knock off Imperium in six-man tag team action. Matt Kim questions if Zayn and Owens can win again after beating the Usos twice, including at WrestleMania and again on SmackDown. If they can win a third time against the Bloodline, this time against Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa at Night of Champions. They recap the Bronson Reed Ricochet match, which was a lot of fun and resulted in a win for Reed. Bronson Reed is interviewed backstage afterward by Byron Saxton here, and Reed says that he dares anyone to step up to him, and he will remain undefeated going forward one-on-one. So he acknowledges that he hasn't been beaten yet in one-on-one competition, which is true since arriving on the Raw roster. He's been pinned a handful of times, like he lost last week's Battle Royal, but that doesn't really count. For example, he was pinned in that Elimination Chamber match back in February. It was a multi-man match. He was pinned in the Triple Threat at Backlash by Austin Theory, where Theory retained the United States Championship. He lost to Bobby Lashley, which I think was a double countout. I don't know if he won or lost. I don't think he lost by countout or whatever. I think they were both counted out. But regardless, he has not been pinned one-on-one yet or submitted. And that's kind of what he's boasting about. After watching this interview, it kind of made me think, and I was thinking about this during Raw as well, whatever happened to the Ricochet Braun Strowman tag team? Because they were a team before they came to Raw. We haven't really seen them together at all. We haven't seen Strowman on Raw at all, I think, since the draft. I think they were actually on an episode of Raw, if not SmackDown, on one of the draft shows, and we haven't seen Strowman since. Making me think maybe we're building to a Braun program, which honestly wouldn't be the worst thing. I think that'd be pretty cool. The matches could be good, but more importantly, Reed can have someone that's over to work with and really benefit from beating. Assuming that's the end game, so just a thought. Back in the studio, Scott and Matt hype up the Money in the Bank qualifiers kicking off next week on Raw, so looking forward to those. They replay the main event, which I'm not really sure why, because they already recapped the main event earlier, but they replayed again here with Zayn, Riddle, and Owens beating Imperium. They hype up the Zayn and Owens versus Bloodline match for Night of Champions, Gunther and Ali for the Intercontinental Championship, and also promote the Fatal 4-Way WWE Women's Tag Team title match coming up in Raw next week with, now we know, Raquel and Shotzi, who stepped up as Raquel's new partner on Raw last night, against Ronda, Shayna, the team of Chelsea and Sonya, and Bayley and Io as well. That's going to be taking place next Monday on Raw to crown new women's tag team champions. Speaking of Raquel and Shotzi, they replayed the Raquel-Sonya Deville match where Raquel won fairly quickly, and Shotzi came out afterward to save her. They're interviewed on this show by Byron, and Shotzi says that was just a taste of what they're going to bring next week in just the soup, and it's a hard soup. They were talking a lot about hard soup. I have no fucking clue what they were talking about. And then Rodriguez also addresses their opponents, specifically Ronda and Shayna, who they have history with. Chelsea and Sonya as well, but they already, Raquel has beaten them before, also in singles competition, but specifically in tag team action alongside Liv a couple of weeks ago, last month, I believe. They talked specifically about Ronda and Shayna, who they have history with from back in November, from when Shotzi was feuding with Shayna, and specifically Ronda, heading into Survivor Series. So there is history there. I do think Ronda and Shayna will win the championships, and maybe that's the first feud coming out of that four-way next week. They replay the Alpha Academy win over Viking Raiders from Raw. They're interviewed backstage are Alpha Academy and Maxine Dupree. Dupree says that she and Chad share a mutual love for Otis, so they're kind of on the same page at this point. And Gable says that maybe behind every number one guy is a number one girl. I think that's a Rocky reference according to, not Matt Camp, but Scott Stanford, which I would not know because I haven't seen the movie. And you can fucking kill me like you're going to do with CM Punk, for who also said did not see the movie. I joined CM Punk in that camp. I apologize. I'll get on that as soon as I can. But anyway, so they run down the Night of Champions card to close out the show here, including all the matches they talked about earlier, but they kind of do this on every go-home show of Raw Talk, and probably, I would say SmackDown Lowdown as well, but I don't think there's going to be an episode this week, because I mentioned, like, the pay-per-views at 1, they don't typically do SmackDown Lowdown on the weekend of Saudi shows if they're on a Saturday at, like, 1 p.m., so they're probably not doing it. There's a press conference, I think at noon, actually, instead of a pre-show. I think they're doing the press conference at noon, which is weird. Unless it's on Friday and I'm just completely forgetting. I'm pretty sure it's on Saturday before the show. But anyway, I don't think there's a SmackDown Lowdown, so they're recapping, or rather running down the entire Night of Champions card here. Speaking of which, they promote the press conference, which I'm pretty sure is at Saturday at noon, the hour before the pay-per-view. But again, for Backlash, they did it the day before. So, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. It's probably Friday. That would just make the most sense. But if it's on Saturday, I guess that also works. They hype up the KO show coming up on SmackDown with Owen, Zayn, Reigns, and Sikoa. And they also plug Sheamus, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn for the bump on Wednesday. So that was it. That was it for the bump. Not the bump. Fucking Raw Talk for May 22nd, 2023. Pretty effective go-home edition of the show here, heading into Night of Champions on Saturday. A show with not kind of a rush build, but not the strongest build, but a good card overall, specifically the top 3 matches. Brock and Cody, the tag team title match, and Styles and Rollins, which they didn't really talk about here at all, which is kind of bizarre. Aside from running down the card for Night of Champions, they didn't talk about that at all, probably because Rollins, they replayed part of his interview last week on Raw Talk. They did not do that here. Rollins was, again, not there. They just filmed that entire interview at once because he's out filming a movie for Marvel right now. So that's why he was not on Raw again. But nonetheless, thank you guys for checking out my review. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. What was I going to say? Channel for more daily content. That's what I meant to say. Have an awesome one, guys. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.